We are back. Welcome back for another episode of Oscar Roundup. My name is Brian from Watchit Rank, and today we're going to be talking Martin Scorsese's Irishman, the 3.5 hour epic that dropped on Netflix this year, nominated for a few Oscars. Let's get into it, guys. All right. Clocking in at 3.5 hours is The Irishman, starring Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci coming out of retirement, Martin Scorsese's Buffalino crime family epic, you can almost call it, because, this thing is epic in its length and its powerful performances. So, for those of you joining me for the first time today, we're going to talk this movie and we're going to break it down into three categories as we do on Watchit Rank: the story, the execution, and the feel. Those are our three criteria how we rank the movies because, as I've said it before, you could have a movie that's really not that good, but you might connect to it. So let's break this down right off the bat from the story. This movie is the dealings of a hitman and his retelling of his time with the Italian mob here in Pennsylvania. So, based off of a book called I Heard You Paint Houses, the story is really a retelling from Frank's point of view, played by Robert De Niro, and his dealings with Russell Buffalino and his crime family, as well as Jimmy Hoffa. And from a story perspective, I'm going to say flat out that I didn't know a lot about this U.S. history, I guess you could call it. And we mentioned it in our review on Watchit Rank that I wish we learned about this in high school, because this is fascinating stuff. And the way that it's told through Frank's retellings in the nursing home and the flashbacks over the different time periods, it's really well done. And I can't really speak to, the creativity of the story, or if I really felt like I liked where the story was going, because it is a true story. So it was really about how I felt of the way it was told, and the dealings of Frank and his interactions with all of the characters was just really captivating. And that's why I can't really talk too much about the story, and I just want to get right into the execution, mainly the performances that Scorsese got out of these guys. This is the first time that the three of them have been on screen in a long time together, and Joe Pesci coming out of retirement. This thing is electric. Pacino on screen screaming, "You dumb mother you," and Pesci just with this aura around him. It was so captivating, and you are just locked into this thing. There are some times where, because there's so many characters, that you do get a little confused, but because of the three's chemistry, the big three's chemistry, you don't care how long this thing is. You love the decisions that are made, and I love the directing style that Scorsese brought to this. This movie is, for lack of a better term, and I said it on the podcast, it's cinema. And I hate to say that because you can see the posters behind me. I love the thrill rides, but Scorsese got this one right. So from an execution standpoint, he brought out the best in his guys, and they gave it their all, because I know Pacino and Pesci got nominated for supporting actors at the Oscars. De Niro, great work. I wouldn't have been hating on him if he got a nomination, but really Pacino and Pesci, I loved Pesci in this movie, and I want to see more of him. But, if this is going to be his swan song, I'm okay with it. And like I said, Pacino, just classic Pacino, screaming around at everybody. It was so much fun to watch. So this, might be a little bit of a short review because we did talk about it on the other day's episode of Watchit Rank. But from a feel perspective, there's really not too much to kind of dive into with feel. They do set up this relationship between Frank and his daughter and how she, from a young age was always around these people such as Buffalino and Hoffa, and how she kind of takes to Hoffa, not so much Buffalino, but really how Frank, who played by DeNiro again, never really got to a chance to be there for his daughters because he's always out doing these things. And by the end of the movie, you can definitely feel the remorse in the character. But they do I think they do a good job at portraying his damaged relationship, especially with his daughter. I think her name is Peggy, who's played by Anna Paquin, who doesn't say anything in this movie, but you just tell with the emotion, it really kind of works. So that's really the biggest draw in terms of the feel. Obviously, the chemistry that the characters have, and how you end up finding out that Frank is the one that has to kill Jimmy Hoffa because of his, this position that he gets up to after he comes out of jail and wants to take the unions back. You are devastated that Frank is the one that has to do this, and obviously that leads to the distancing between him and his family. But they do a really good job of establishing the relationships between the characters throughout this 3.5-hour movie, that by the time it ends, now I didn't love that it dragged those slow deaths at the end. I would have just been okay with some title cards kind of telling me what happened to them. Even though they dragged it out, you did really feel the remorse and the emotion between all of the characters, and watching them go down one by one. So to wrap it all up real quickly, The Irishman, for those of you that might be thinking it's 3.5 hours, I don't want to sit there and go through this, or I implore you to sit down and go through it, because this thing is incredible. It is worth the watch because of the performances. And this is only the second one of these that I'm doing. The first one was Joker, but I'm giving this one out of 10 an 8.7. So I think that this movie is better than Joker. Maybe not the performances in Joaquin, but this thing has everything that you want out of a Scorsese mob epic. So hopefully you guys have seen it, because we talked a little bit of spoilers here, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Up for Best Picture as well. We got to talk about a lot more of the nominees, but this thing has a definite shot. I know that the SAG Awards were the other day, and Parasite took it home. So that's going to be next on the list for me, and we will talk about it on the next episode of Oscar Roundup. See you guys then.